So good morning, everybody. This is our second Friday Focus. And in case you don't know, I'm Jan Soule. And I'd like to introduce you to our panelists that you will see on stage. And you may not see all of them until you lengthen the screen. Click underneath the pictures there. You should see, I'll wave when I tell you. Wendy Brukwinski, there she is. Wendy is our first VP, and she's in charge of programs. And so the whole Friday Focus idea was her idea. And so far, this is our second one. Our first one was with Steve Franks, which you can see online. And we're really excited that today, Margaret Metcalfe, you want to wave, Margaret?
Hi, everyone.
Margaret is here, and Wendy will introduce her later, but Margaret was with us in October last year, and had all kind of really fascinating information to share about what goes on in Washington, D.C. And so we're really happy that she's here with us. And we have two other panelists. One is Vicki Norden. Do you want to?
Hi.
Now, you know, Vicki is running for Senate District 17. She works really hard. She finished in the top 2. So in November, she'll be going against the ultra-liberal, what's his name, Laird, and actually the area that Senate District 17 covers is not only a portion of Santa Clara County, but San Luis Obispo County, Monterey County, and is it San Benito? Is that part of it?
Santa Cruz.
Oh, Santa Cruz. Huh, how could we forget Santa Cruz? And so Vicki, and then you will see Stephen Thaird. Wave, Stephen, with the Trump hat on. We invited both Vicki and Stephen to help us in asking questions. So we'll be able to really pick Margaret's brain, okay? So they're here to help us ask questions. And Stephen has been a longtime sponsor of SVARW and with Coldwell Banker, and is just explaining some of the horrendous things that Gruesome Newsom is expecting real estate agents to go through in order to conduct business. In other words, it's non-business, right, Stephen? Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And I'm sure at some point you'll have the ability to share more with us about that.
My pleasure to introduce Margaret Metcalfe, who's a perennial favorite of ours. We love having her come talk to us. She was born in Guam, and she represents that territory to the Republican National Committee. She's currently the GOP Committee Woman for Guam, which is the equivalent, in case you're wondering what that is, of Harmeet Dillon to the California CAGOP. Margaret also represented in the past governor of Guam to the executive branch of the U.S. government, which gave her a lot of inside information about how the government works. She's actually come face to face with the deep state. She knows how they operate, got a lot of questions to tell us. So at this point, it brings me great pleasure in introducing Margaret Metcalfe. All yours, Margaret.
Thank you, Wendy. Morning, everyone, and half a day. It's a pleasure to be with you today. And I want to thank both Wendy and Jan for giving me this opportunity. One correction, Wendy, and that is that although I have been raised in Guam since I was 3 months old, I was actually born in Texas, my father's home state, and my mother, who is Chamorro, insisted we go back when I was 3 months old so that we could be with her family. So just that, I just want to be free and clear, hoping all of you are free of the virus today. Some of you may recall when I last spoke on the deep state. Well, if you thought the never-Trumpers hated Donald Trump when he won in 2016, think of just how enraged they are over a possible and probable 4 more years. Most of you know I serve as the Republican National Committee Woman for the US Territory of Guam. I have one goal and one goal only, and that is to get our president, Donald Trump, over the finish line on November 3rd, 172 days from today. I would love to think that all of us here today are on that same page. Those of you who don't know me, I am Chamorro. I was raised on the island of Guam. My mother is Chamorro. Our families go back over 4,000 years there. Guam is made up of America is made up of 50 states and 5 island territories. We are just one of those territories, but we stand as our nation's most remote border, over 6,000 miles away from here in California. Our island is the size of San Jose, with an estimated population of about 165,000, similar to Sunnyvale. And yet, the vicinity surrounding Guam is home to more people than the rest of the world combined. Doug Mack, US history professor and author, once stated that our nation chose its territories not to simply add more land and people to our map over 120 years ago, but chose strategic isles to safeguard our nation's borders and shore up our national security. Guam is called the tip of the spear. We are the major buffer between our homeland and those who wish us harm. Facing major threats from China, North Korea, and Russia, Americans need to know just how important Guam is to the balance of peace and power in the Western Pacific. In Guam, we are closer to China than you are today to Chicago. Just several weeks back, the commander of the USS Theodore Roosevelt, a nuclear aircraft carrier charged with the responsibility of patrolling our waters in the Western Pacific, reached out to our governor on Guam for permission to enter our port and seek assistance. Several of our carrier's 4,000 plus crew members were showing symptoms of the Chinese virus following a stop in Vietnam. The captain had reached out to his superiors with no luck. His call to Guam was a Hail Mary pass. A career member of the deep state and part of naval leadership chose to dismiss the Roosevelt's captain. We came seconds away, having a major deterrent, this nuclear carrier, directed out of our region during a time of crisis. Do you see what we are up against? Our governor, a Democrat, was reluctant to offer assistance. Together with our local GOP leadership, we stepped in, immediately voiced support in assisting the Roosevelt and her crew. One of our brave folks stated that these young men and women on board this carrier were our sons and daughters too, and indeed, some were. President Trump arranged for an immediate investigation and sent a team to Guam that day, stating he wanted to get to the bottom of all of this mess. The data collected resulted in our Department of Navy having to reverse their initial call, keeping our ship where it needed to be. One needs to question how far the deep state is willing to go. How expendable are all of us? It's this type of politically motivated action that puts our entire nation at risk. As my governor's DC director and liaison to the executive branch, I sat in on daily White House meetings with the administration to save my governor from having to travel 20,000 miles round trip. That's 22 hours flight time in each direction. The constant threat of missiles from both North Korea and China made it necessary for him to stay close to home. I was honored to serve under both the Obama and Trump administrations, and it was striking to see how different their leadership styles could be. Under Obama, his czars and cabinet members ruled the roost and directed from the top down. President Trump contrary to what the left would have you believe, had a tremendous faith in the American people and felt we were all capable of doing so much better. He saw our governors as not only an arm of the executive branch, but as his elected ambassadors to their respective states. His goal was to diffuse big government and put the power back in their rightful hands, as well as we the people who keep them in office. You see this every day in his daily briefings. He wants the governors to be in charge of reopening their own states. He feels that there could never be a one-size-fits-all remedy on any issue, and he trusts the American people to work through their own representatives on resolutions. All he asks is that our governors be prudent and accountable for their decisions. Some governors have taken this to an all-new level. The more control they wield, the weaker, more fearful, and more dependent on big government we as a people become. Our Democrat governor in Guam has ordered vehicles stopped and checked at major intersections throughout our island. Like in many Democrat-run states, citizens now have to justify why they are out of their homes, facing possible fines and even worse. As you can imagine, this has ignited outrage. Fearing this is only the beginning, one young voter attempted to inject some humor to point out just how ridiculous these power-hungry governors are. And
you're stealing, right to jail. You're playing music too loud, right to jail, right away. You're driving too fast, jail. Slow, jail. You're charging too high prices for sweaters, glasses, you right to jail. You undercook fish, believe it or not, jail. You overcook chicken, also jail. Undercook, overcook. You make an appointment with the dentist and you don't show up, believe it or not, jail, right away. You're stealing, right to jail.
I hope I'm on right now.
No, stop sharing.
Oh, stop sharing. Okie doke, dear. There we go. Am I back on?
Yes.
Thank you. In DC, my office was at Hall of States, located right next to the Capitol building, besides housing the center for our national governors. Most major media are also located here. Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, C-SPAN, ABC, CBS, NBC. In the lobby, hallways, and elevators and offices, it was common to run into reporters, guests, and political pundits you would see and hear later that day on the various news channels. My next door neighbor was actually Chris Matthews. We could not have been two on more opposite sides on all issues. I was harassed continuously by many of our folks, news folks, and countless staff in claiming that our candidate Trump had no chance in hell to win. He didn't have any experience, he didn't deserve it, and had not earned enough chits to even consider running. Going to work each day was a true test of endurance. Every yard and street corner boasted a Clinton-Kane sign. Remember, DC voted 97+% for Hillary. The Thursday before the election, I asked my husband, Chris, if we could just get the hell out of Dodge. This was becoming overwhelming. And we took a drive to the Shenandoah Valley. And I can tell you, I started to count their signs, and I stopped at 1,100. 1,100 signs for Trump Pence. I saw 3 signs for Clinton Kane and 2 for Gary Johnson. And I can tell you, it moved your heart to see their signs. Our signs were not the little 2x3s on the side of the street. In the Shenandoah Valley, through the ranches and the farm country and middle America, you saw these Trump Pence signs wrapped around silos that were 100 feet tall. You saw them on the sides of barns, across the rooftops of farms, along the fence lines of all this cattle country. This was unbelievable. By the time I got back to Washington, D.C., I immediately called my governor and said, Governor, you need to put a letter in the paper. Congratulate the president on his win. I said, I was a poker playing Republican and all my money was on Donald Trump. I knew it, I could feel it. And sure enough, we sat up that night and our dear president came through for us in bold red, white, and blue colors. I remember the president-elect's first conference call to all governors made on December 2016. Prior to his own inauguration, he asked that the governors provide him with their top 5 infrastructure priorities so that come January 20th, he could hit the ground running. I personally sat in on many of these meetings on behalf of my governor and was inspired by our president's proactive concern and commitment to speeding up the process. While in bed one Friday evening, following a new missile threat from Kim Jong-un, I received a phone call from the White House Situation Room. The young man asked if I knew where my governor was. They had been calling his office, his chief of staff's office, as well as his lieutenant governor's office, and no one answered. I explained Guam is 14 hours ahead of us. It's early Saturday morning there, and most of these folks were probably still asleep. And who, by the way, needed to reach my governor at this time anyway? The caller whispered, Miss Margaret, the President of the United States. Boy, I sat straight up and said, right guys, give me 5 minutes. I immediately called my governor's security detail and asked them to wake him up to take the call. This conversation was later viewed around the world, showing my governor at the kitchen table in his undershirt. This image in no way diminished the importance of the call. The world watched as President Trump told Governor Calvo that our country and the American people had our back. My governor responded, Mr. President, all of us on Guam feel safer today, sir, knowing you are at the helm. I couldn't have been prouder of these 2 men if I had reared them myself. Several days later, again on a Friday, Good Friday to be exact, my governor called at about 7 p.m. DC time. He had some concerns with North Korea and wanted to set up a conference call with the Secretary of Defense ASAP, or so I was instructed. I promised to do what I could. Being Easter weekend, I was uncertain as to what I could expect. I sent an email to the White House and called, leaving a message. Within 20 minutes, I received a call back, and a conference call was set up with DOD for that Easter Sunday. As you can tell, we all learn to work around the clock. You find yourself doing reporting, interviews, hosting, and attending meetings at all hours, from the backseat of an Uber to a side room at the White House to airport lounges across the country, even while walking down the sidewalk towards another appointment. This is the norm under our president. He and his team work around the clock, always putting America and Americans first. After receiving a late night call from the White House, I once asked the president's special assistant, when could he expect to go home that night for some rest? He said, ma'am, my boss never sleeps and I have to be here when he is. Prior to the pandemic, President Trump worked hard to make our jobs easier. He has accomplished more in 3.5 years than the 44 presidents before him. He had broken all historic records in filling over 193 conservative judicial appointments, lowering unemployment in every demographic and igniting our economy to new heights. He had brought back twice the lost manufacturing jobs to America in his first year. Those famous jobs President Obama so obviously stated, are just not coming back. To date, we remain the largest manufacturing nation in the world. His stand on right to life is unprecedented and serves to make all America proud. This tremendous success lent itself to even greater odds for our president to handily win his second term. After losing the war on Russian collusion and impeachment, Democrat leadership, along with the deep state, panicked, and they are now throwing everything they have into defeating him. You realize in their minds, some way, somehow, this Trump train of success must be derailed. As we have all witnessed, if they can't find a scandal, they'll invent one and lie. Some of their actions are actually treasonous. We can only hope our judicial system has the integrity to hold those guilty accountable. You remember Pelosi's comment, we can't focus on facts, we must focus on accusations. Now, as the swamp has promised, they can't let a crisis go to waste. The Chinese virus is being the Chinese virus is being used to shut down all of America and our economy. Our lives, our liberties are expendable in their fight for power. Over 19 Democrat candidates tossed their hats into the ring. In the end, Biden prevailed, or should I say, Biden's handlers prevailed. What the DNC, his campaign managers, and his family have allowed is demeaning and borders on senior abuse. Yet China will happily welcome him as our president in any condition. Watching any of Biden's interviews, and especially his recent virtual rally in Florida, only confirms just how inept and unprepared this man is to run our nation. The DNC will not allow him to run in the end without intervention or a plan B. Who else have they got? Who has a chance against Donald Trump? As luck would have it, Hillary has burned all of her bridges and no one can stand her. While Miss Michelle, on the other hand, is simply too selfish and prefers living the sweet life to helping her husband's party. The DNC is truly in a heap of trouble, but I suspect that they will strive to still squeeze a woman candidate in there somewhere. First and foremost, our president is a businessman. He recognizes that technology and production is forever evolving. He promotes and incentivizes businesses to work with our educational systems to better provide the training needed to meet our future demands. Additionally, those US businesses who have been wooed by China and other countries have been enticed to return their companies and production back to the good old USA, most recently targeting the pharmaceutical companies in China who produce over 90% of the components that make up our medicines. Most people and agencies in Washington recognize that everything must move at a glacial pace. Well, folks are still trying to cope with the new sheriff in town and are reeling from the new deadlines that are being imposed. This process continues to this day. We have a leader in President Trump who not only talks the talk, but walks the walk. With recent events, this fact is becoming more and more evident to even our most staunch leftist governors and lawmakers. President Trump has initiated Project Warp Speed with emphasis on finding a vaccine in time to make a difference in fighting the virus on behalf of all of us. He has made many promises to America, and he keeps them, delivering them day after day. All this while having to battle the unprecedented resistance and hatred from the left, the media, and the deep state. One would have to ask, why would he even consider jumping back into this ring of fire? Because he knows firsthand that we are up against a dangerous element of our society, hell-bent on fundamentally changing our lives and stripping us of our liberties. He knows he can make a difference. He not only fights for our liberties 24/7, but has taught us by example to fight back as well. He could not have made it clearer when he decided to re-up, when he emphasized that these vile folks are, quote, after me, not after you. I'm just in the way. President Trump recognizes that we are at a pivotal crossroads in our nation's history and that he is the person America needs at this time, validating Justice Scalia's prophecy made 5 years earlier. He has not only led the nation in controlling the outbreak of this virus, he has led the world as they continue to mirror his policies. Let me make it clear, because in my mind I haven't. He tells us straight out, these people are not after him. They are after you. And he is just in the way. The progressive Dems extremists, along with the deep state on both sides of the aisle, will not let this crisis go to waste. Additionally, as Ms. June so eloquently conveyed to us in her recent SVARW presentation, there are just too many coincidences to warrant trust and believability in anything coming out of China. And as bad as China is, those Americans aiding China are guilty of worse. Sit back and look at the big picture. Initially, Trump acted in haste. Then he couldn't act fast enough. Now, everything he says or does to aim at reopening America and putting Americans back to work puts all of our lives in jeopardy. The fake media and corrupt left claim he values the economy over all else, while failing to see how our lives and liberties are connected to economic security. Their socialistic, communistic, destructive agenda permeates the air we breathe. Falling short of having our president imprisoned or impeached for lack of proof has ignited a need for this new deadly virus to destroy our economy while they secure their power over all of our lives. If the left, with their media and tech elites, can instill enough fear in all of us, they can control every aspect of our lives, where each and every one of us are at every given moment of the day or night. Who lives, who dies, who receives help, who doesn't, who succeeds, who fails, where we eat, drink, what we say and do, where and when, or even if we are allowed to worship, who we vote for and whether our votes even count, restricting and eliminating our right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. All this while we work every day to fund this bloated, corrupt bureaucracy. Two of our main party leaders, Congressman Paul Ryan and Trey Gowdy, were recently exposed for their part in blocking the efforts of our more responsible lawmakers from investigating and providing proof needed to shut down the Russian collusion debacle over 3 years ago. Their help could have saved hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars while having our president's back. Over $40 million spent to try a non-existent crime. Then we have the Mueller investigation at an estimated cost of $32 million. And then we have impeachment costs and the multitude of lawsuits filed by our own legislature against our president. These dollar totals stagger the imagination. Just think about it. Battling the hateful fake media, deep state, and swamp critters on the left, while your own party hosts as bad, if not worse. A weaker man would have jumped ship, as evidenced by both Ryan and Gowdy. What do you do when hundreds of thousands of federal workers who live in an area that voted 97% for your opponent now work for you? Our president often states we are fighting invisible enemies on every single level. Believe him. Believe him. We owe it to ourselves and our families to recognize how dangerously close we are to losing our liberties and life as we know it. As one wise speaker once stated, we fall into one of three categories: the fighters, those that help the fighters, those that do nothing. You know where you sit. We are the stewards of our nation. If we don't step up now and stop this runaway conspiracy, we have some serious splaining to do. Recently, a Conservative Party member asked me, Margaret, why are you supportive of President Trump? What do you work so hard for to provide his defense? Wow. If we love America and want our children and grandchildren to experience and enjoy the liberties most of us grew up knowing, the liberties our grandfathers, fathers, and sons fought and gave their lives to protect, we have to recognize a gift when it's given. At the end of the day, President Trump is only one man, a man who has sacrificed so very much to keep our American republic safe for all of us. We must do our part. The DNC and fake news paint a false and ugly picture of who this man is. Many folks are unaware of the genuine peril we face. Invite conversations with your family and friends. Don't be hostile or argumentative. Remember, knowledge is the key. The more informed our voters are, the better chance we have of flipping California red. Years ago, my son Christopher asked to sleep at the beach with a number of his teammates and no parents. He assured me I had nothing to fear because his friends had his back. I said no. I told him I was far from being a perfect parent and didn't know everything. But the one thing I was absolutely sure of was that he was sitting across the table from the best friend he would ever have. Faced with all of our current uncertainties, I can state with this same confidence that we are blessed. We are blessed to be Americans, blessed to live in America, and blessed, as my governor would have it said, to have President Trump at the helm. At a luncheon in 2015, Justice Scalia stated that all of us could withstand anyone for a mere 4-year term, but that he and as many as 3 additional justices were hanging on by their fingernails. Some reluctant to step down without a secure conservative in the White House. He could not have made his concerns clearer. These 4 lifetime appointments would rule on issues that would affect all Americans, our liberties, and our lives for untold generations to come. He felt that with 17 Republican candidates, every conversation in the room was focused on who one liked or didn't like. Justice Scalia adamantly declared that none of us had the luxury of voting for who we liked. We must vote for who we need. Boy, was he ever right. America needs Donald Trump. Thank you for sharing your time, and be well. I'd love to do a special thanks to Jan, Wendy, and my dear husband, Chris, who is my tech dude. God bless all of you, and God bless our America.
Margaret.
Thank you, Margaret. That was wonderful.
Thank you, dear.
So you're up for some questions now, Margaret, right?
Okay.
Okay. Where we start?
I'll do what I can.
Wendy, you want to start?
Sure. I have a question that was submitted via chat from a Peter Soule, and he wants to know if the president will bail out the financially irresponsible blue states. What are you thinking on that, Margaret? What are you hearing?
Well, what's actually being talked about is the fact that the president is drawing the line in the sand, stating that those states that were in trouble prior to this pandemic are to fend for themselves in that regard. Obviously, this doesn't take into effect what our Congress and Senate will do, but as far as the president goes, that's where he's coming from, and that's the message he's giving out. So I think these governors are going to have to recognize that they have to be held accountable for their mismanagement, their misspending, and their just overall disregard for their budgets.
Which is a terrible thing. Okay, Stephen, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. Does the President of the United States have a red line in the sand as far as it is concerned, as far as it regards attacks against our liberty in these various states? I know that he said that the Justice Department and AG Barr are looking at the different draconian measures that the governors are instituting, but I know that the president believes in federalism. But is there a red line that he will not let them cross, where he will step in?
Well, unfortunately, that isn't something that can be ascertained right now, Stephen, primarily because every governor has been given the leeway to work with their state officials. And the president has only promised to come into the picture if they don't act in a prudent or in a responsible manner. And right now, as you've probably seen, there are so many different ways that most of our counties have departments that are called income generation departments. They just sit around a room and brainstorm on what they can tax next to bring on in new revenue. But what we are facing is truly a first for anyone in the world. This national pandemic, aside from the 1917 influenza, this is something that we are experiencing right now. Our economic breakdown is not due to the economy or its loss of value. It's simply due to the fact that we're restricted from conducting business, as you've stated in your own world of expertise. Once this is unleashed again, we'll have to take a look then and see just how fast we can recoup. But until then, I think that the president is keeping all of his advisors close.
Thank you.
Thank you. I wish I had more definitive answer for that.
We go to Vicki.
Times of uncertainty.
Sure.
Vicki, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. Addressing the two fronts of, public health and safety and opening up our businesses again, which we're all looking forward to. How do you see the administration balancing the public safety and our personal freedoms?
The Trump administration?
Yeah, just, the administration where we're all talking about, our personal freedoms, and we just see so much restriction being put on us. And there's a balance between, opening up our economy and opening things up. And I know that our president has wanted us to move forward with opening businesses, but how do you see them balancing those freedoms and the public safety moving forward?
Well, I think that his safety advisors, all of his doctors and his crew of very talented professionals have advised him that certain elements need to be put in place so that business owners can go about opening their businesses in a safe manner. Now, he's done everything in his power to do that. He's brought all of the materials, all of the protective gear, all of the suggestions. He's brought the specialists to our attention to address us almost on a daily basis. So we as business owners, those of us that have to deal with this, are going to have to make some strong decisions, because many staff members may or may not return to their workplace simply because of the conditions that they have at home, possibly elders they're caring for or children that they're caring for, and so they want to limit their risk. But by and large, what the president's goal is to give the governors and our business owners the ability to have what they need so they can make an informed decision and risk of their own as to whether or not they're going to open their businesses. The guidelines are in place: 6 feet, masks, the cleansing of the hands, the gloves, making sure everything is wiped down. These are all things that are just things. It's going to be a lot of attitude, and it's going to be a lot of prayerful people who'll be returning back to work. But our economy thrives on the American people getting back to work.
Yes, I would agree. And we are waiting for that in the state of California, where the governor is going to release us from lockdowns, because we see many businesses out there that as you had said and commented on, that will not return. And a lot of those will be the small business owners.
Well, and it's not just the business owners. There are places across the country, Vicki, that people can't go to church without getting fined $1,000 for being out of their home. In churches, as most of you saw in the news, one church that housed as many as 300 to a session only had 16 in attendance, and they were all stopped by the local police. And as they exited, our constitutional rights to be able to worship are being challenged here. And you've got to recognize that this is something that this is a dream machine for the left. I mean, they can entice the tech world to put up their drones and keep track of us. They can put chips in everybody and everything so that they can monitor our every movement, our every temperature. They can monitor where we go to go to church, to worship, or if we do. They govern almost every aspect of our daily lives. And this is where our president is bound and determined to insert himself and say, enough is enough.
Yes, and we are so thankful. I just want to make one last comment, Jan, if I could. I know that the pastors in the state of California are planning to open their churches in a statewide movement on May 31st. So I don't know if people are aware of it. Many of the churches and the pastors have come together and decided that it's Pentecost Sunday and we're opening our churches. So that will be a wave that will be coming across the state of California, and we're thankful for that.
Okay, thanks very much, Vicki. I have a question from somebody identified as technical director. It says, do you believe blue state governors are keeping their states locked down on purpose in a coordinated manner to deliberately destroy the economy before November to hurt Trump?
I believe that tremendously so. In fact, I actually mentioned it when I was talking. I said they've given up on the Russian collusion. They've given up on impeachment. While they've got the chance, this crisis is their baby. If they can take this ball and run with it and keep, the only thing that's keeping them in the game is that our economy is faltering. And as long as they can keep pushing us down and harping on what needs to be done but isn't being done, they will push themselves ahead. And this is what President Trump is up against, because a lot of what they're saying is orchestrated. This is what is coming out of our legislative group in the Dems and the deep state in Washington, and they are filtering it down to every governor, Democrat governor and Democrat local politician. And this message is constant. If you listen to them on one channel after another, they'll be actually using the same verbiage. It's uncanny. But they read an article and they all spread the same words.
It's amazing. It's amazing that Governor Newsom, California is the largest economy in the United States, and that he would sacrifice that to get Sleepy Joe into the White House. I mean, that to me is almost treason. So I now defer to Wendy to ask.
Yeah, I have a great question, and I have this question myself too. Do you think that Trump actually is going to have the guts to subpoena Obama in this whole Obamagate soft coup thing that's going on right now?
Well, I think that our president has the guts to do anything that is rightful to do, but I do think that we're going to have to rely on Attorney General Barr to get us to the finish line on this. We need someone who has been put in place to do that job, and I do think that he's focused on that. I do think that he is the right man or the right person to address this issue. But I do know that our president will be in the sidelines doing the wave.
A lot of us will be. Stephen, did you have something else you wanted to ask?
Yes. So you made it clear that President Trump is only one man and can't do this on his own. So, as a representative who is in the administration, what would your advice be to us on the ground as individuals? What can we do practically besides donating money, which a lot of us already do, to support the president in a visible manner that would allow him to feel like he could push forward with his agenda with more boldness?
Stephen, thank you for that question. I think that each and every one of us are doing it today by being here, talking, discussing these issues. But I think that we can go forward and talk to our family, our friends, our church parishioners, our students, our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, and let them know that what they see and hear isn't always factual. They need to do the research on their own. They need to recognize that the answers are there. They just have to look them up, and we can't just take the news on face value. Our media is so bent in one direction, and nothing they say can be believed. We used to say, oh, you can only believe, half of one and of what you see and what you hear. Well, my goodness gracious, now they even create, with all this tech equipment, they can create things that never existed. And our young people and our families are smarter than most of us give them credit for. They might have differences of opinion when it comes to policy, but when you look at the root issues, are we for right to life? Are we for freedom of speech? Are we in support of the Constitution? Do we want to be able to work hard and earn money for our families and our children and set up things that will make their lives more meaningful, to educate them? We all share the same values, family, faith, the economy. These are things that we can all share common ground on. And if we can just bring up this conversation and enlighten them if possible, give them the opportunity to ask questions. Don't be argumentative. Don't be, just let it ride. I can tell you more people have listened to us, and as is evidenced down in San Diego and across the country, we're seeing more and more people recognize that they need to step up, not for a party, because remember, none of this, when you get outside the box, none of this is Democrat or Republican. These are all nationwide issues. Whether you have water, whether you have electricity, whether you can open your business, whether you can go to church these are nationwide. Do your children have good health and good education? Do your parents have good Medicare? I mean, these are things that all of us share. All of us share in this same concern. And so just talking about what we find common helps us to get our message across.
I agree.
So, Vicki, do you have another question?
I just,
we have plenty of questions coming in.
Yeah, I know. And Margaret, thank you for just such an encouraging message, by the way. I mean, I believe you have encouraged so many people. I wanted to ask the question, what personal freedoms do you see are at stake with some of the Congress's COVID-19 relief proposals?
Oh my goodness. Well, that could be a conversation we could carry on for a couple of days, but you can see that some of the small businesses are clamoring because some of the larger businesses have taken advantage, and our president has stepped in and asked that these larger businesses that should not have been included in the mess, give back, and this is what's happening. But every state is different, Vicki. Every state has different issues, especially with these concerns. A big one is that there's a special funding that they were promising for those people that are first line responders that are working even though their facilities are now closed. But what about those people that are responding whose facilities are still open, such as hospitals and emergency care centers and things like that? If you read the bill itself, it would eliminate them. So some of these bills need to be thought through more carefully and targeted so that those people who need the help and are deserving of that help, and not just any migrant that comes across the border is up for it. These are the type of issues that need to be hammered down and put in place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, this might be on similar vein here. Nicole is asking, she says, I've read that the president is giving more money to the states under the Stratford Act and allowing the governors to spend it how they want. Newsom is now threatening to not giving the money to counties that aren't enforcing shelter in place. Is there any truth to that?
Well, that's been a complaint from a number of governors, and predominantly Democrat governors, because they obviously have different places they want to spend the money, where the agenda that the president wants to put forth. But quite honestly, Jan, I don't know the specifics on whether or not anything is going to be done to change that. I just know that this is an issue of contention that has been raised just over the last 2 days in particular, because the local governments are contesting what the governors are doing, in that the governors say they can spend this as they please. And so their own people are holding them to task. We hope that that prevails.
Right, thanks, Margaret. If I could, because it is 11 o'clock. There's actually 3 more questions in the Q&A. I was wondering if our panelists don't mind, we'll just ask the 3 questions that are here and ask you, Margaret, to quickly answer them, so that I know that your time is valuable. And I know there's a lot of interest. So if we don't get to everything today, would you mind coming back sometime?
Not at all, dear.
Okay, so let me just ask these 3 questions, and then we'll call it a day. But they're really good ones, okay? So Lisa Seago asks, how much power, if any, does Dr. Fauci have over the public health systems in the states? Or is it just his recommendations that they are to listen to?
It's just his recommendations that they are to listen to. He is not an elected official. He is an advisor to our president. He has a tremendous amount of experience and lends a lot to it. But again, like any other issue that is of critical concern, the experts cue in, and the president makes the final determination.
Great. Thank you so much, Margaret. And we all have our opinions about Fauci.
So does he. He's never been so popular.
Okay, Margaret, this is from Jane. She says, Jane, of course, is there anything SVARW members can do to help you present a speech like you just did at the Republican National Convention?
Oh my goodness. You know, quite honestly, we're planning that right now. Our president tells us there is no plan B. He's going to hold the convention come hell or high water. And we're making arrangements right now for security measures while all of us descend on the convention platform there. But I would love to provide words of support for our president in any fashion, form, or media. So, or medium. And just simply contacting the RNC would be the best way to go about doing something like that. And Ronna McDaniels is our chairwoman. She's the one, the RNC is the one hosting the convention. So she would be the contact person.
Okay. Thank you so much, Margaret. We're all interested in what's going to happen in Charlotte. So,
and just to let you know, Jan, as a sideline, our dear Ronna, her father is the brother of Mitt Romney. And for Ronna to be as such a staunch supporter and to have worked so hard to get our president where he is today is a true, wonderful gift to all of us. And we've got to thank her for it. Thank you.
absolutely. Okay, last question. And I have heard this from so many people. And maybe you can enlighten us. Okay, here it is. And I could have said this myself. I get so many text messages, emails, Facebook requests for contributions from supposed Republican groups. We question their validity. We don't want to give to a deceptive site. How can we know these are legitimate requests? What is the safest way to donate? And I would add, there are so many Trump victory, RNC, so many places that are asking for your money constantly. So any guidelines on that, Margaret?
Yes, please. I think the best place for anyone who is concerned or may have concerns should donate directly to the RNC. And I say that because when candidate Trump was first running 4 years ago, he brought his tech team to the RNC and elevated our ability to reach out to people via social media. And within a very short time, and I'm just guessing off the cuff here, but I think it was like 9-10 days, this group was able to raise somewhere in the range of about $53 million. And historically, the pattern would be that the candidate who provided this help would keep 50% of that, and that was raised, and the other 50% would stay with the RNC. Our dear president, or so I'm told, left all of the money with the RNC and said, there are candidates out there that need more help than I do. I can fund for myself, but there are more candidates out there that are struggling to bring their seats back, and the RNC can then use that money where it sees fit. Now, if that's the case, people that want to contribute money, they give it to the RNC. The RNC is following those same guidelines. They're locating those people that are good candidates that are winnable, but that are struggling because their opponents have a bigger cash flow, and they can assist them. So if you want to do what's best for the entire party, that would be the route I would suggest.
Great. Margaret, that's an excellent question, an excellent answer to end on. And so many of the words, chats we've received are like, yay, Margaret, this is fantastic. We love you. So, hey, on behalf of the audience, I would just say thank you so much. This has been so enlightening, and we appreciate it.
Thank
We
you.
certainly do. And thank you to our panelists.
Thank you very much,
Question
Margaret.
moderators.
God bless you all.
Thank you so
God bless
much.
you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Next Friday, Mike Wasserman.